Yes, I did. I've only gone and bought the Festool CSC SYS 50 EBI table saw. Full review coming up. Welcome back to the Woodgrafter. Today on the Woodgrafter we're going to have a look at this new table saw from Festool, the CSC SYS 50 EBI. So we'll start off by looking at the range, at the various configurations and options you can get if you decide to make this purchase. We'll then unbox the one that I actually bought and see what we get in that particular kit. We'll then commission it, we'll calibrate it, we'll check it for accuracy, and then we'll put it through its paces with some basic cuts. So let's start by looking at the all-important range and that price point. Now you can buy this in one of configurations. There's the basic, which just gives you the saw itself. There's the plus that gives you the saw and the battery system. We'll unpack that shortly. You can buy the basic set that gives you the saw and a mountable stand. I've not bought that, but there's a picture of it here. Or you can buy the set, which gives you the saw, the battery and the stand. Now this is not a cheap proposition. If you were to buy just the saw in the basic, then that's going to cost you £1,949.51 in August 2023. But that's the retail price, and we'll come back to that in a second. If you were to buy this configuration, the plus, it would cost you £2,303.66. If you were to buy the basic set, it's going to cost you £2,322.01. And if you were to buy the full set, £2,686.18. Now this has been on the market for about 9 months or so, and the street price is already tumbling down, so it is beginning to find its own price point. Again, August 23, just buying the saw in real money, street price £1,429 thereabouts. This set here, £1,750 or thereabouts. To buy the basic set, this with the stand, £1,773, and to buy everything, just over £2,039. And I'm seeing those prices come down month on month on month. So whatever you do, do not buy it directly from Festool because that's a retail price, and do not go to anyone and buy this. Go and do your research on the web because you're likely to save about £500 or £600 UK in this, if not more, as the price comes down. So what do we get in the system? Well, the entire thing comes in a great big cardboard box like this, just branded with a picture on the side, picture on the other side, and then some sort of kind of branding on the top. But more importantly, inside that box you get this thing here. Now this is called the CSC SYS. SYS stands for sustainer, and yes, believe it or not, this here is a sustainer, and you can see it's got all the glorious aspects of a sustainer, including the ability to stack these things together and lock them in. Now it's a pretty big sustainer, as you can see. It comes in at around about 515 millimeters or so. Standard sustainer width, standard sustainer depth. So it is a sustainer, but by God, it's a big sustainer. But it's quite impressive, right, to get a table saw into that sort of footprint. Let's get the simple bit out of the way first. This is what's known as the energy set. So inside the kit, we're going to get a battery charger, a dual battery charger, and we're going to get 2 Bluetooth batteries, and we're going to get the usual brick of a book that nobody ever looks at, but Festool keep putting inside there, and the instruction manuals that don't really tell you an awful lot, so take it or leave it. Sustainer will take 4 batteries and a place for the charger. The batteries themselves are Bluetooth batteries, you can see that here, and they're the Airstream system, which means we've got these small vents on the side here, so as they charge, it blows air through the battery, keeps it cool, and it charges quicker. And they do charge pretty quickly, to be honest. Your 40 minutes will see you a full charge from empty, so that really is pretty good. And it comes in a sustainer, as I've said, but this is the Type 3 sustainer, so you've got the handle on the front, you've got the handle on the top, and it's also got these sliders on the side, which makes it compatible with some of the van racking systems that are coming onto the market today. So let's look at the main event. This comes nicely packaged into the big cardboard box, and it comes with some literature. Now, unusually for Festool, the literature is not inside the sustainer, it was just loose inside the box. So for God's sake, check the box if you were to buy this and unpack it. You don't want to lose this. Again, you've got the pointless brick of paper. If you want to know what this is actually the brick that comes with all the battery systems, and it just tells you safe working procedures of the battery itself in multiple languages. And if you want to know about batteries, give it a read. Safety precautions, what the indications mean, etc. But let's be honest, we sort of kind of know what batteries are. But for your own safety and protection, read the manual. It also comes with the all-inclusive warranty, so don't forget to register this on their website, or better still, download the app and register this on the Festool My Work app, because that also gives you some control and functionality of this, and allows you to link up Bluetooth batteries, which gives you some indication of what's going on inside your battery. So that's useful. So find that and register it. Mine's already done. Safety manual for the actual piece itself, and the safety manual is replicated inside the actual handbook. Now typically as woodworkers we don't tend to bother with this, but this one is actually worth a read. It does talk you through some of the commissioning process. It gets into details about how you can calibrate this as well, and also gives you some features and different cutting angles and sizes and so on and so forth. So this one is actually worth grabbing a coffee and sit down and read it. Take 10 minutes or so, but it gives you some good information inside there. As I said, all that literature comes in the cardboard box, not inside the sustainer. So now let's open this up and have a look at what we get in this kit. Although it's a sustainer, it's a bit different. There's no top handles or anything like that. But here you have this green clip. Push that forward, push it back, you can see your little flap comes up. There's one on this side as well. Push that forward, clip it in, and your flap comes up. With the green knob towards you, that just now simply lifts off. And there you have the table saw. Now I must confess, first impressions of this were pretty good. When I opened it, I paused and went, wow, because it really is a thing of beauty. It's a sexy piece of kit. It's solid, it's heavy, it feels robust, it feels well made, and it just looks nice overall. So yeah, first impressions were great. It's all enclosed, not like the DeWalt that's all open, dust everywhere. This is all completely enclosed, and the base of the sustainer stays attached, which then makes the base of your table saw. So beside the kit, you get a parallel fence. You get this table here that's quite clever because it slides backwards and forwards, almost like a mini panel saw, and that is so smooth. You can't get the view on video, but that really is gorgeously smooth. On the front here, you've got your controls, your on button, your off button, your controller here for your digital dial, and the ability to set the height and the angle electronically. And that's one of the big features behind this accuracy here that you get inside this module. This folds out and gives you an extension table here. On the front you have a manual gauge, and it's as simple as lining the edge of your fence up, whichever fence you've got fixed, to the number, and that's the distance between the blade and the parallel fence. There's also an indentation here and a small one on this plastic insert, and that gives you the center point of the blade, which is quite useful little reference point. On the table slide you have two slots. You've got this slot here and this slot here. The narrow slot takes the Festool clamps, and the wider one takes the Festool mitre gauge. Now, word of caution on this one here, this is non-standard. So you're not going to be able to bring your incremental gauge and put it in here. It's just not going to work. It's a non-standard slot that's unique to Festool tools. So that's a bit of a disappointment for me, because I would like to use my mitre gauge. But luckily the one that comes with Festool is not too shabby. You'll also notice on this side here, there are no slots whatsoever. So the idea of making something like a sled to give you accuracy on your cuts is not going to work on the table saw. Sliding table should negate the need for things like sleds, and it should give us incredibly accurate cuts. So around the back here, you've not got an awful lot. You've got the dust port here that obviously moves as we angle the blade. This dust port here is 27mm. It doesn't actually take, strangely enough, the 35mm hose, but it's an internal diameter. The 27mm hose fits inside there pretty well. So it's great, for example, with that new battery dust extractor that Festool brought out, and that would pair with this system incredibly well. It'll give you lots of portability. Hiding away inside here, there's a wrench, an Allen key that's safely stored here, and that's useful for changing the blade and also plays a part, if you wish it to, in changing the riving knife. Hiding away inside the sustainer lid is some stuff. You've got the mitre gauge here. You've got a dust bag that fits on that dust port that we saw. If you're not going to use an extractor, I will probably never ever use this because I'll be using the dust extractor. And it's got the blade guard here and an extended riving knife. It's also got storage here for a riving knife. And we'll see shortly that hidden away inside this slot, there's a short riving knife fitted. And it's also got storage for some blades. Little card tells us about the blade. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 types of blade that this takes. Down here you've got a laminate blade, which is great for doing laminate flooring. Now this saw really is aimed at the finished carpenter. Great portability, you could have it on the floor, you could see yourself laying laminate floors or doing architrave or skirting boards or whatever it may be. And that laminate blade is fantastic that it fits inside here for that sort of laminate floor job. It's also got a fine cut blade, and it's a fine cut blade that's currently fitted inside this machine. It comes as standard with the fine cut blade. This is fantastic for crosscuts in softwoods and hardwoods, and is also fantastic for things like man-made materials, MDF and the like. You can also get a universal blade. Now the universal blade is a combination of a crosscut blade and a rip cut blade, and will also do man-made materials. I'm not sure why it doesn't come with the universal blade and why it comes with the fine blade. I guess a lot of people are going to use this more for man-made materials than maybe fine woodworking, as I'm going to use it for. But it doesn't come with the universal blade, it comes with the fine blade. You can also get, I think they call it the Panther blade. This is a rip cut blade, and obviously that is quite useful. And you can also get an aluminium/plastic blade, so this will cut aluminium as well. I don't use any of my tools to cut aluminium. It's purely a wood shop, and I don't want those little sparks of aluminium in my work. But if you are using it, make sure that you do use dust extraction. Little shards of aluminium will go everywhere. Make sure that you're well protected, and make sure that your hose is an anti-static hose. And all those precautions are clearly spoken about inside the book that we've already agreed you're going to read. Everything clips into the lid pretty well, and you can probably see the green sort of features. Anything Festool, if it's green, push it because it has a purpose. So this button up here brings off the mitre saw. There's 2 metal clips here that holds in the guard. It's a pretty standard mitre gauge, to be honest with you. If you look on the back, you can see there's a number of indents, or actually holes. So you have a positive stop at 0 degrees, a positive stop at 15 degrees, positive stop at 22.5 degrees, positive stop at 30 degrees, positive stop at 45 degrees, positive stop at 60 degrees, and a positive stop at 67.5 degrees, and that's in both directions. So it feels pretty sturdy, and you can lock it down. There's also a knob here that you can release that allows you to slide the fence back in 2. On the side you'll see another green knob, and that green knob is just simply adjusting a small peg here that pushes it in and pushes it out. When it's out, the peg is in. That allows you to simply slot this in and then lock it down, and that's nice and firm inside there. Okay, so that's pretty much what you get in the kit, and a very, very swift look at some of those features. What I want to do now is to commission this thing. I want to turn it on for the first time. I've not even turned this thing on yet. It may not work for all I know. Surprise, but it may not. So let's take it through its commissioning now and see how we do that. Well, the first thing we do is we put the batteries in. I say it's a 36 volt system, and it's 36 because Festool battery system works on 18 volt batteries, and I have 2 of them. You slot one here at the back till it clicks, and one here at the front till it clicks. There is an on button here, so this is your master power switch. Turn it on, you get a light, marvellous. Turn it off, power's down, and the light goes off. Now when you turn it on, you can start to see here that this display is now beginning to boot up. And I'm going to zoom you in so you can start to see this, because this is a key part of this system. This is the thing that differentiates this from any other tool on the marketplace, this digital control, and that is digitally controlling the height in the angle and the speed of the blade. And it's that gives this in-time machine its precision. So let's set this up for the first time it's been turned on. So the first thing it asks for when you power it up is for the language. And it defaults to German, but then again, it's a German company. And then you can quickly scroll through just by turning this little green knob to quite a lot of different languages. And we're going to start off by saying English. So we're going to press English. It then asks me what units do I want to work with. And yes, it's millimeters and it's inches. It's no surprise, a millimeter. Now it's going to start to reference itself and set itself up. So it says start reference drive, press and hold the button. So we just hold this button in and that's going to spring into action. And this is just referencing itself, so it's got a baseline to work with. I can see the angle, but I can see its angled blade inside here, it's tipping. Now the blade is coming out. I can see the blade coming out. First time I've seen the blade actually. Now the blade is going back in again. And it's now rotating itself, coming back up to 90 degrees, I assume. And now it's tipping beyond 90 degrees, and now it's done. So it's to angle the blade all the way over to its 47 degrees in this direction, and it's minus 10 degrees in this direction. It's also brought it up to a height, and it's decided to stop there. So that's now initiated. So the first time we can now see the small riving knife here, and we can see the blade here. Now the riving knife is slightly lower than the height of the blade, which makes it great for things like dados and for rebates or rabbets, and for tenons as well, which is one of those things, plus the accuracy we're going to get, that makes it perfect for fine woodworking, one hopes. But we've not finished yet. That's just initiated the device itself. So we can now tick that and say, yes, I've done that. So it's now saying we're going to calibrate the cutting height, and it's asking me to press and hold that button. So I'll do that. It's now lowering the blade, as you can see. Saw blades retracted. It wants me to position a workpiece on here. So what we're basically going to do, we're going to put a workpiece on here. We're going to power the saw up, and we're going to adjust the height of the blade so the blade is just scoring the workpiece itself. So I've just mounted the mitre gauge, and I'm going to put the table in slide mode, and in theory you should be able to see that cutting. Okay, so back to the instructions. Yes, that's now in the 0 position. It's now saying to start the blade. Now this is the first time I've actually powered this machine on, so obviously I'm going to stand back, because I always do with a new power tool, belts and braces. But I'm interested to see the volume. Now I'm going to take a pass of the wood across that blade, and it's not quite scoring it, so I'm going to lift that up by 1/10 of a millimetre, 0.1, 1/10 of a millimetre. I'm going to try that again. And just there, I can just see an ever so slight score on the end. I'm going to try a clean end, just to check that. Yeah, and now I'm getting a score, clear score right across there. So that is calibrated. So now it's asking me to push the button in, which I do. And now I've got the 0 point set. So with that set to 0, it's now just telling me how to go about using the machine. So I use this top green button here to set the button height. Use the green knob to adjust the height, we know that already. And it's now telling me that I can set favourites. Now the machine itself has got 4 favourite memory positions, and this will allow you to set things like the speed, the height and the angle. And if there's things you use an awful lot, then you can set one of those. There's also a 5th memory slot that you can't set, it's factory set, known as a park position. I'm sure we can see that shortly. So you press the 2 buttons, you select the dial for a storage slot, fantastic. And then you can use the dial to select a favourite, press and hold it, and then that will set the favourite for you. We might do that shortly. It's got a park position, press and hold dial to move into the park position, fantastic. And that's our tutorial now done. Now typically this is the display that we're going to see. Millimetres at the top, degrees at the bottom. 2 batteries, both fully charged, and those memory positions we spoke about down the right hand side. And you just turn the green knob to select those. So if I come along and set the top one, keep the button pressed in, and the blade is now rising to 30 millimeters, which is there. Or I can manually change the height, pressing the button, that sets the height, and I can take that down to 20 degrees, so that should now in theory be 20 degrees, and I can set it over to an angle of 45 degrees. And we're assuming that's 45 degrees, but we've not checked or calibrated that, so we need to go and look how we do that. Now what I want to do, I'm going to raise the height to 30 degrees here at a 45 degree angle. And I want you to watch this blade, because I'm now going to change the angle down to about 20. Watch the height of the blade. Can you see that? It's adjusting the angle, but it's retaining the height of 30 degrees. Now that's great. So even as I'm readjusting this, it maintains the height of the cut, which is obviously incredibly useful. No matter what menu I'm in, I can go back to a main menu and I just take the green button and I press it twice. 1, 2. And that takes me back to the menu. And here I can change the speed, I can change the blade, I can calibrate the height, I can calibrate the angle, I can re-reference this, so we've moved it around, just re-reference it. I can go back into that help guide, I can set the units, I can take the entire thing back to factory settings. I've got some information about the machine and I can change the language. So what I want to do now is just to go and check this angle. So I'm going to calibrate the cutting angle here on the gauge. So this is now saying to me, move up saw blade, press and hold. So just as we did when we did the overall height, it's going to help us. So I'm going to press that in and it's going to move the saw blade up, and it's now setting that saw blade to what it believes is 0 degrees. So position a 90 degree tri-square against the blade, and here's one I made earlier. Now obviously when you're doing this, make sure you position your tri-square against the blade, not against the tooth. And hopefully you can see, but I'm seeing more daylight at the bottom, or more torchlight in the bottom than I am at the top, which means I want to bring the blade this way ever so slightly. And again, I can adjust this in 0.1 of a degree. So that is now bang on 90 degrees with my square, and given the fact this is the Incra guaranteed square, I trust it quite a lot, so I'm quite happy that this is now set. Once that's done, you hold the button in, that's now calibrated the 0 point. So with the device now commissioned and the device calibrated, I just want to check two more things: the accuracy of the fence and the accuracy of the mitre gauge. So is this fence actually parallel to the blade, and is the mitre gauge, when it's set to 90 degrees to the blade? Now, although we talk about fences being parallel to blades, in an ideal world we want this to toe out ever so slightly at this end. The worst thing you can do is to have the fence toeing in, i.e. this side of the fence is closer to the blade than this side of the fence, because when you're doing your rip cut, that will jam here, and that's one of the things that gives you kickback. So you're always better having this slightly toeing out, i.e. this end here is ever so slightly further away from the blade than this end here. Now we'll check that in a second for accuracy, but this is adjustable. And on the back of the fence here, there's a small Allen screw, and all that Allen screw is doing is it's pushing this part of the engagement plate there in or out. And that has effects of just twisting this ever so slightly. Obviously, I'm exaggerating that. But we're going to check now to see what it looks like out of the box. So the way I'm going to check the accuracy of the fence, I'm going to bring it up into close proximity to the blade, and then I'll use a set of feeler gauges to measure the gap at the front and the gap at the back and see whether that's toeing out, toeing in, or is bang on. I'll bring the blade up. I'm just using any random feeler gauge here. I'm just going to put that in as a small shim and lock it down, and that way the blade isn't interfering with the fence, but I've got a gap that's measurable. Now I'm going to find out the gap here at the front first of all. And that's an interference fit with a feeler gauge of 0.23 millimeters. 0.23 millimeters. And the gap is wider at the back than at the front. and I'm getting an interference fit at the back with 0.3 millimeters. So as factory set, this fence is indeed towing out, and it's towing out by 0.07 millimeters across the diameter of the blade. And that's pretty good. That's exactly what I would want to see, that slight tow out, just to reduce the chance of kickback. So accuracy on that one, pretty good. Tickety box. Now I want to come in with our mitre gauge, and we're looking for 90 degrees here. So I'll set this up to 90 degrees, and I'll lock that into place there. And I'm going to come in with, again, my Incra square, avoiding the tooth, and I'll just come in with the iPhone so you can see what I'm doing here. And can you see that's a consistent gap, consistent shadow line down that blade there. And just to prove the point, you can see I'm up against that fence. So what more can you say out of the box? The fence is calibrated well, and the mitre gauge is calibrated well too. So this thing is now ready for use. I'll just drop some power back on. Now if you just turn the green knob, we're starting to select those memory functions we looked at earlier on, and the very bottom one is P. So I'll press P, drop the power off for safety reasons. Slide the table back, and that exposes this black cap here. Little green knob inside and the Allen key that came with the machine. Unlock that, and that slides out of the way. And then you can clearly see inside we've got the nut here for taking off the blade, and we've got a lock down here at that green knob there that's just a brake. So you push the lock down, insert your key, and then that just unscrews. This is a panther blade, and actually you can just see on there the little panther symbol here. The yellow piece and the name goes inside, so you're looking for the blank side. That slots back down into that slot. Engage the arbor, and then screw the nut back in. It tightens up anti-clockwise, as most saws do. Push down the lock and then just nip that up. Now while we're in here, let's have a look at this riving knife. Just here, above that green brake, there's a little silver cap. Push that in and the riving knife just pulls out. And then you can take the new riving knife and that just slots back in from the top end, clicks into place. We can then take our little black panel, slot it back in, put it in the lock position, and there you go, blade changed. So to test this, we'll just run this little piece of stock through it. This is just scrap pine. So we've got the blade set to 50 millimeters. I've got the fence in, my dust is sorted out, my Bluetooth batteries are paired. Let's make a cut. Just going to mark that as a reference face so we know we've done it. And now I'll use this as my reference face on here, and I'll cut this edge down, and that should in theory give us a square cut. And now I'll mark this as a second reference face. Now as long as I reference any of these two faces on this surface, the other ones by definition must be parallel if this thing's doing its job. So I'll take this face, reference it on here, and we'll make the next cut. And then I'll take the other face and we'll just trim this final face off here. Now in theory got a 4 square piece of stock. So coming in with our trusty, oh wow. Yeah, there's not a lot wrong with that, is there? The dust collection's not quite as good as I thought it would be. You can see here we've got some nice collection of fuzz. So the final thing we now need to do is just to put this away. You'll see these little P symbols everywhere on the machine, and when you want to pack it away, put it into P for park, lock those down, put the fence down, or the table down, sorry. Slot out to your mitre, and again on the top here you've got these two P symbols, so we just line up those P symbols and lock that down. Bring this round, again there's a P symbol here, bring that round so it clicks into place on the P symbol, and then there's a P symbol down here that you're using to change the blade. Put that into park as well. What I have discovered, I don't like these blades sticking out, so I've actually discovered that you can actually wind this down to -2, and then that will just get the blade out of the way, and I like that for safety. Don't forget to power off. Take out the batteries, although they will store in the case if you wish them to. They can stay in situ, but I may as well take them out and put them on charge for next time. Bring in the sustainer lid and drop in here your fence. Spare blade. The green cap on the sustainer goes to the front of the machine, drop into position, close the handles, job done. So that's it. That is the CSC SYS 50 EBI new table saw in a sustainer from Festool, and this is a quality piece of kit. It is not a cheap investment by any means, and I totally recognise that, and that price point is going to divide people, I think, in the comments, as a Festool brand always does. But that's my new table saw, a no regret purchase. It's going to fit into my workflow incredibly well, once again raising the accuracy and the precision and the repeatability of my work, and that's what it's all about. Hope you found this useful. Happy to take your comments and questions. I will be pushing it through its paces to do some more accurate work. Look around for that video in the near future. Take care, and I'll see you next time on the Woodgrafter.